Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly, and we're back with another Texas Hill Country Fishing Report with Greg Wielander of Upstream on the Fly. How you doing, Greg?
Well, hi, Marvin. I'm not too bad. It's the end of January here, and we've had some winter this year. Matter of fact, 2 weeks ago we had 4 to 6 inches of snow here in central Texas. So it was definitely winter then, but today, beautiful. You know, it's in the low 70s and forecasted at least a few more days this week to stay in the 70s. So it's that time of year where you never know what Mother Nature's going to throw at you.
Yeah, and the great thing is I noticed your lows are kind of starting to pull back up into the mid 40s at night, so it's going to start to kind of warm up now.
It is, you know, and you never know. That could continue on. You know, typically at the end of February, there was always the big Guadalupe River Trout Fest down on the river there outside of New Braunfels, down in Sattler, Texas, actually. And there were years where we were sweating, and there's other years where there's not enough clothes to put on because it was just flat out miserable and cold. So we still got another 4 weeks before we're out of the woods of possible more winter. But this week right now is definitely a great time to be outside. And I wanted to talk about some fishing options, fishing opportunities. You know, I've been doing a little guiding out on the Llano River over this past month, and not guiding for your warm water fish. They've been a little sluggish and not been too eager to eat the fly, but chasing the trout out there. You know, Texas Park and Wildlife has done a great job with some of the trout stockings for some of the maybe not as limelight rivers as far as the trout fisheries go. You know, everybody thinks about trout, central Texas, it's, you know, the Guadalupe River, but they do put trout in like the Blanco. They put trout out in the Llano River. So there's plenty of opportunities. They're not the 4, 5, 6 pound trout. You know, they're not the big over 20 inches. They're smaller trout, but I've really got to give them a thumbs up because the trout out in the Llano this year were the biggest trout I've ever seen in one of their, you know, put and take fisheries. Okay. Like the Blanco or the Llano. They were nice sized trout. Now, of course, there are some smaller ones, but I was really pleased with seeing some of the bigger trout in the river. And, you know, they put in over, you know, 2,400 trout out west towards the town of Castell. Okay. You know, in between that and Llano, and even farther west out towards Mason. So, it's kind of neat, you know, to go out there and be in a river that looks like it should have, trout 12 months out of the year. However, it does get too hot and trout do perish. You know, it's not cold enough for the trout to sustain. But when they're there, it's like you're standing in the wild river and catching some trout, and you're not having to deal with people. You know, that's what's really fun. And when you're all said and done, you head on over to Castell and get one of their cheeseburgers. It's pretty solid cheeseburger. Randy and the crew out there at Castell's General Store does a good cheeseburger, and they're also known for their Saturday barbecues and their steak Sundays. Well, COVID kind of shut that down until hopefully later this summer, Randy was telling me. But they still are making a killer cheeseburger out there, and they still have plenty of cold long necks in the cooler.
Yeah, just leave your vegan friends at home, right?
You just leave your vegan friends at home, and that's exactly right. But yeah, you know, as far as how do you catch those trout out there? You know, small woolly buggers, okay, and I say small like size 12, okay. They will definitely eat those small buggers, and they're not getting. You know, they get pressured somewhat with the conventional guys when they first put them in, but then the newness kind of wears off, and they're kind of, I guess the guys are using corn and that kind of stuff. So they're not seeing as much fly activity out there, and there's really not that many folks doing it. And, if you can catch them on a small bugger, that's awesome. If they get, a little tough, then you'll do some nymphing or even some free line nymphing without a strike indicator, some little pheasant tails or prince nymphs, maybe some copper johns work well. But it's fun, and if you pay attention to what's going on, a lot of times there is some dry fly activity. At the right time of day, they'll actually come up and start eating off the top. And the problem with that, though, is they're eating like a size 20 or 22, and it's very small. But it's definitely worth keeping your eyes open and having a dry fly box when you go out there. But good times for sure. So let's move on to what we do a lot of here in Central Texas, and that's warm water fishing. The wintertime can be hit or miss. But what we've got going right now, the warming trend is what you're looking for to get out on the water. You've got to be real flexible this time of year when you try to go chase bass because, if you've got a trip planned and there's a strong cold front blowing in on the day you're supposed to be on the water or even the day right after the front blows in, it's kind of tough, So keep an open schedule and you can make it happen. But Lake Bastrop is one of the area's power plant lakes. Okay, so it's going to have warmer water temperatures than our rivers or even some of our highland lake, like Lake Travis or such. So that's a popular wintertime bass fishery if you don't mind fishing on lakes. And they have a lot of hydrilla in there, a lot of grass. And it's an enjoyable lake to fish. And of course, we've got the Lower Colorado River, which is a tail race. I mean, it is coming out of the bottom of Ladybird Lake there in Austin. So the water temperatures can be a little bit on the cool side. But, the farther you go downstream from the dam, of course, if you have sunny weather and trends like we have, you'll hit some warmer water and it's still sink tips, either a sinking line or a sink tip. And it's going to be a slower presentation on the bass, but you've got an opportunity though to see some of the bigger fish, and you might even get into some white bass because that's getting close too, So the white bass spawn starts in February, okay? However, you have to have some rain. We have to have some water flow into the tributaries into our lakes. And one of the first white bass fisheries here in Central Texas is out on the east side, over at Lake Granger. Okay, so that's the San Gabriel River that comes out of Lake Granger. That's where the San Gabriel ends its life over there in the Granger Lake. So white bass will start running up in an area called the Steppes. And it's kind of a popular area. It can get crowded. But that is a fishery for the white bass later as we get into February. And then we'll start transitioning into the upper Guadalupe above Canyon Lake and the Pedernales River above Travis. But unless we get some rain, those spawns might not happen. So we just spent the last 5 days with kind of wet, ugly weather, but we didn't really get accumulation. I'm going to say, depending on where you live, it's about a half inch total. So that's not enough runoff for the tributaries. But I know everybody that is wanting to transition from trout over to warm water, white bass is generally the first fish. So still a little early to tell, but we need a little bit of rain before the white bass takes off. And I was talking about the Highland Lakes here a few minutes ago, Lake Travis, Lake Buchanan. Water temperatures right now are in the upper 50s. So still a little bit on the cool side. There are stripers in those lakes, but it is a sinking line game. And you definitely need electronics on your boat if you're out there doing it yourself, whether you're on a kayak or in some sort of motorized power boat. you can find those stripers because they're busy looking for shad, and they're chasing shad around right now. So we need to talk maybe about flies. So stripers on the lake, small clousers, maybe like a size 4, size 6, and chartreuse and white and gray and white. And of course the white bass, it's typically depending on the fishery. And we're going to talk more about that as we get into February, and let's hope we're going to have some white bass fishing. Small clousers, okay. The clearer the water, the smaller the clouser. If you're fishing tributaries that are off color, then you can work your way up to maybe like a size 6. But, your olives and whites, chartreuse and whites, and gray and white are all popular colors. And even a dark color, black and purple, just something dark for those days that you have no sunlight. They'll respond a little better to something darker. And then over on bass drop, it's definitely a lot of shad patterns, and even some crayfish patterns, or just kind of a creature fly. It doesn't really look like anything, but it moves, pretty much what bass like to eat. And that could be in the oranges and black colors, rubber legs, just movement, and you want to have a slow presentation. So, Marvin, there's kind of the Central Texas winter fishing report.
Yeah, it's a little bit of something for everybody.
It is. And when you start getting days like we're having this week, it's time to get outside, and it won't be long. It's going to be end of February going into March, which is a prime time to definitely be on the water here in Central Texas.
Yeah, absolutely. The great thing is this is the fishing report where we do our drawing from all the folks that submitted questions last year. And before I give you the name, Greg, why don't you let folks know what they're going to win? Yes.
So I'm donating a Monarch fly line. Okay. And the model is the Henley Phantom Tip. And if you're not familiar with the Henley Phantom Tip, it's 100% floating line, but the tip of it is clear. Okay, so the first 30 feet is going to be clear floating line, and then it's going to be followed up by an olive floating line. And the one I've got today is a weight forward 8 floating, so it's an 8 weight, and it's very popular for guys that are chasing carp. And it's also popular down on the Texas coast when you need maybe that little bit longer leader. Well, in this case, you've got a clear tip on that fly line that does float. So it'll get you a little bit of presentation for when those redfish are being picky. And of course, there's nothing wrong with bass fishing with it as well. Okay, it's a good all-purpose fly line, and as long as you're in water that's 45 degrees or warmer, this line is going to work for you.
Yeah, and Monarch makes great lines, and the lucky winner is Aaron Gruler. And congratulations, Aaron. And what I'll do is I will email your mailing address to Greg, and he will hook you up. And Greg, I guess, first of all, let's just remind folks that we're going to keep the tradition alive in 2021. So here's how it works. You can send us a question. You can email them to us. You can send them to us on our Instagram or our Facebook page. If we use your question, I'll send you some articulate fly swag, and you'll get into a drawing for something that we'll draw for in early 2022. And, Greg, before I let you hop, why don't you let folks know where they can find you so they can book you and fish with you as things start to improve?
Yes. My website, that's upstreamonthefly.com. And I'm also over on Instagram and Facebook as Upstream on the Fly.
Well, awesome, folks. It's only going to get better from here. You owe it to yourself to get out and catch a few. Tight lines, everybody. Tight lines, Greg.
Tight lines, Marvin.